After the 2013 Impact Forum, Scott Uehlein, corporate executive chef from Canyon Ranch, approached us with an idea. As a chef, Scott had never been to a health conference, so he was really able to observe this industry and the topics through a fresh pair of eyes. What he was struck with are the parallels that he was seeing in his own industry, the food sector, and in particularly the food service industry. Scott commented, you know, in a way, we're all talking about the same things, this whole idea of improving health status, but we're in different rooms talking about it with different people. So at his invitation, I joined him at a meeting in Cambridge called Menus of Change. Menus of Change is a collaboration between the Culinary Institute of America and Harvard School of Public Health. And the mission is focused on the business of healthy, sustainable, and delicious food choices within the food service industry. And I often tell Scott, I left a different person than when I walked into that conference. It's really rare that you go to a conference and you get so much knowledge and so much actionable information. It was really clear to me that we needed to bring that conference's perspective to the Impact Forum. And in fact, we're also looking at how we bring that further into the Lake Nona community. So we were successful in recruiting Arlin Wasserman to moderate the discussion today, and he assembled an impressive panel of speakers. Arlin co-chairs the Menus of Change initiative, is a global expert in food and sustainability, and among his many, many qualifications, he's a fellow at the Aspen Institute, a past recipient of a Food and Society Policy Fellowship awarded by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and was the Chief Sustainability Officer for a global food company, Sodexo. And Arlin, we're thrilled to have you back to Lake Nona. Welcome.
Thanks, Gloria.
Thank you all. So we're going to bring Scott, Christy, and Mehmood up in just a moment. But as Gloria said, you know, we're talking in different conferences and in different silos. And what I wanted to share with you in many ways is the business case for change that is working to change the food service and restaurant and hospitality industry. And I hope in sharing this with you a little bit, it will also be the business case for why the healthcare industry ought to be looking for more partnerships and collaborations and co-creating innovations with the food service industry. We are all in the business of keeping people alive and having a healthful lifespan. And from our side, enjoying coming to restaurants more than enjoying going to the doctor's office. That's one of our advantages. But redefining how and what we eat, balancing people, planets, and profits. As many of you know, the Dietary Guidelines Committee just came out with their report. In a few years, we will have another geometric shape. It may be a pyramid, it may be a circular plate, it could be an app, but for many, many, many years, the food pyramid or dietary guidelines looked like this. Whatever we could find that was edible, we would eat because we wanted to stay alive. Yes, everything was fresh, local, grown without pesticides and fertilizers, but we only lived to maybe 30. So both of our professions deserve a lot of credit for helping us do a little bit better than that. On the food side, though, the business of starting to grow food to feed ourselves as an economic activity transformed the planet. Now, I am 5th generation in the food industry, I understand. My grandfather's great-great-grandfather started out as a broker, as I understand, of goats and cabbage and maybe potatoes somewhere in Russia. And when he got into business around 1700, this was the portion of the Earth's surface that was dedicated to producing crops, either crops that we would eat or crops we would feed our animals. As he progressed and began to build the Wasserman food empire, by 1750, we had started to clear a little bit of the eastern part of North America to grow crops. and India and parts of Central Europe had become more intensively farmed. When my great-great-grandfather got in the business, Europe and much of Asia had been cleared for planting. When my grandfather took over the business, part of North America was cleared. Dad came into the picture. About 20 years after this, he opened his first grocery store with his father. But at this point, we had dramatically transformed the way the northern half of the planet's land is used. And 1950, when Dad opened the warehouse that I got to hang out in a decade or two later, much of the northern half of the planet, the northern hemisphere, was dedicated to crop production. And this is what it looked like when I went to college. So between the time my family got in the food business and the time I started to think about food as a profession, we had transformed the surface of the earth through our economic activity of feeding ourselves. It might not look like this, and although food is tied to global warming, it might not be this specific theory that was how we transformed the planet. We were talking about obesity earlier, but I guess no. But they are actually connected, and we'll get into the business case for change in a minute. But at a very basic level, our dietary choices are important to the health of the planet. Right now, 40% of all arable land, it's not squishy and wet, it's not a steep slope. 40% of all the land you could walk on, you could build on, is now dedicated to food production, both crop production and raising livestock. About 40% of all the fresh water we use globally goes into producing food. And although the estimates range from a conservative number at the World Bank of 18% to a high number of over 50%, probably about 30% of all human greenhouse gas emissions or carbon emissions are a result of feeding the activity of growing food and feeding ourselves, with the production of beef being roughly half that total number. As you all know and have talked about and bookmarked many times for this much anticipated panel, I guess coming late, we are always much anticipated because there's more time to anticipate it. Dietary choices are also extremely important to our health. We know nearly 40% of adults in the US are overweight or obese. 47% have major health risks linked to dietary intake. And for all causes of mortality in 2012, diseases linked to dietary risk far outpaced something like lung disease, which was a rallying cry for a national change in a major industry. However, in the restaurant industry, we believe that while we may move to a post-smoking society, and smoking has been banned in most restaurants in the US, we are not moving to a post-food society. And although there has been some interesting nutritional innovations, we believe people will still continue to eat. But the scientific imperatives about what to eat are beginning to be aligned. The Harvard School of Public Health Department of Epidemiology did a study between people who ate X servings of red meat and those who would eat one less serving of red meat, either processed or unprocessed red meat, and swap that out with someone who ate a serving of nuts instead of red meat, or beans instead of red meat, or grains or low-fat dairy. And what Harvard found was that if you eat a little bit less red meat, you reduce your risk of mortality from all causes by 5% or more. I won't read through this whole chart, but if the screen were a lot wider, and we put this next chart, which is the kilograms of CO2 equivalents or greenhouse gas emissions from different sources of protein, you would find that those that increase our risk of dying are also the ones that have the heaviest environmental footprint or impact on the planet. So the science of how we improve our health and improve the health of the planet through our food choices is converging. In 1960, when our gross domestic product in the US was just under $500 billion, we spent $27 billion on health care. And we spent $74 billion on food, just under 3 times as much. If we fast forward to 2012 and a $16.6 trillion economy, we spend $1.38 trillion on food. We have dramatically increased our spending on food. our spending on healthcare increased a whole lot more, and we have flipped from spending more on food and less on healthcare to more on healthcare and less on food. Given the impact of diet on our health and what the food industry has done over those intervening decades, this is our ask for revenue sharing. In part because while the importance of food to our health and our environment and the consumer awareness of food, their interest in how it's grown, is it local, was it grown with hormones or GMOs or antibiotics or whatnot, is increasing, we are making a multi-generational shift in this country that has already occurred in other industrialized countries to eat more of our meals prepared by someone who is not a member of our household. We are basically hiring culinary professionals like Scott, who will join us in a minute, and food companies to prepare more of our meals. In 2009, we spent over 40 cents out of every food dollar literally at restaurants. And if you look at things like institutional food service at your corporate cafeteria, in public schools, if you're in the military, or the food that you get as a prepared meal, ready to eat right from the grocery store, the fastest growing part of grocery retail, now about half of our food dollars go to buy meals whose ingredients are selected, the portions and the proportions of the recipes by food companies, not ingredients we buy to assemble and cook at home in our kitchens. What do consumers think about this? My firm, Changing Tastes, along with the Hartman Group, next week are releasing Diners Changing Behavior, Sustainability and Wellness and Where to Eat. You can find out more about this report in a little while. But two headlines for this, other than people who care about sustainability dine out more than those who do not. They actually outsource more of those decisions. Is that consumers today are trying to manage their diets by avoiding harmful ingredients and by increasing their intake of plant-based foods. Better for health, better for the environment. That message is resonating with consumers. There's a lot of fine print on this, but when we talk about the diets that people are engaged in, it is diets like I avoid gluten, I avoid GMOs, I eat organic. So sustainability has also redefined what healthy eating is. And the other piece is that we then asked consumers, if someone were to offer you two choices equally priced, one of which has a traditional meal like you'd be used to, like a hamburger, and another one that looks and tastes generally the same, but half the meat has been taken away and replaced with plant-based proteins, a majority of men and a large majority of women would consider or prefer that meal because it helps them achieve their health and sustainability goals while making it extremely easy because they don't actually have to change what they think they're eating. That was a breakthrough idea. I did not mean to turn the power off. There we go. So that is the triple bottom line return. And I just want to make the case that if we choose to partner together more, we can probably make the third, fourth, and fifth largest transformations in the food industry that I've seen during my career. When even vague medical advice comes together with the culinary thought leadership or cultural leadership and the food industry, we have transformed dietary change. The $11.5 billion bottled water industry was created by the food companies leveraging medical advice to drink 8 glasses of water, whatever that's based in. I can tell you, before the bottled water industry existed, I was amazed at how many people were all kind of shriveled up and fallen down on the sidewalks around the country. But thanks to that medical advice, plus food industry innovation, an $11 billion plus industry was created. The move to lean meats, and specifically the boneless, skinless chicken breast, transformed the $43 billion poultry industry in the US and, frankly, the global poultry industry, as for many years we wondered what to do with the legs, thighs, and wings until some restaurateurs got clever and dumped them on global markets, changing other countries' poultry industries. Unfortunately, from my perspective, it had a bank shot, and pork for a little while thought it should be a white meat, which was a little bit of a trick where they took out the color but also the flavor. And then more recently, with the increase in fruit and vegetable intake being promoted, plus chefs saying that the right way to eat a salad in my restaurant is to have several different kinds of leafy greens on one plate. A neat trick at home if you want to buy 7 different heads of lettuce and not throw half of them away, despite how high-tech your fridge may be, launched what's now a $3 to $4 billion bagged salad industry that really didn't exist before the mesclun was brought over by chefs who had seen it in Europe. So we can make some enormous economic, health, and environmental and dietary changes when we partner together. I want to ask a few people to come up on stage to talk a little bit more about how that's working in their companies. So I want to ask Christy Consler, who's the Senior Vice President of Human Resources and Corporate Sustainability at Jamba Juice, to come up. Scott, who has already introduced, Scott Uehlein, Vice President of Food and Beverage and the Corporate Chef at Canyon Ranch, and Mehmood Khan, Vice Chairman of and Chief Scientific Officer for PepsiCo Global Research and Development. I guess I'll sit over here.
We made the decision for you.
You made the decision for me. So Gloria was nice enough to talk about menus of change. And Christy and Scott, yes, this is staged. I am so pleased that you serve on the Sustainable Business Leadership Council for the CIA and Harvard along with me. And I wanted to ask each of you to just take a minute and share within your company and for you personally how health and sustainability have come together and why you made the investment of time in trying to move the industry, not just your company.
Sure. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Jamba Juice, we sell smoothies. We kind of started out, that's how we became famous 25 years ago. We were founded by a couple cyclists who were looking for a healthier way to refuel after a workout besides a Snickers bar. And so really, kind of health and wellness has been in our DNA. Our company mission, we're a purpose-driven company. It's all about inspiring and simplifying healthy living. And so, that's really kind of central to who we are. We've always had more of a plant-based menu. Personally, I have been interested in health, wellness, and sustainability for quite a while. Prior to Jamba Juice, I worked at Safeway and started up their sustainability and corporate social responsibility initiatives, and really got interested in both the health profile and sustainability of our food systems and how we could, kind of act cooperatively to drive positive change. So.
Scott, you in Canyon Ranch?
Sure, yeah. I think I have to take one brief detour and explain something that Lou said, and that is, I have lived in Tucson for 16 years and never met the mayor. And after dinner last night, apparently the mayor is growing me eggplant and I'm going to be cooking it at his house. So you are a very friendly Central Florida community. We at Canyon Ranch, we're a health and wellness lifestyle company, and but we touch a very small percentage of the overall population. And our real drive and desire to get involved in something like Menus of Change comes down to really extending the mission and hopefully touching other people outside of the small top tier level of people that we actually do see at our resorts. And I think also we've recognized over the years that the idea of healthy food has changed very much. I mean, we started in 1979 and we were kind of the consummate fat farm where people would come and eat 800 calories a day. And we've really emerged into this full global perspective on how to eat more healthy and in incorporating Mediterranean flavors and the flavors of the Mediterranean and the nutrition of the Mediterranean. But in addition to that, we recognize that health and wellness has really become about sustainability as well. And there's a blurring, I had this conversation last night with one of the other attendees. There's kind of these blurring lines between the raw numbers of nutrition and sustainability, and I think it's a good thing. There's a merging or a convergence of these two kind of disciplines into one, and we recognize that it's not just about the raw numbers anymore, but it is about the whole package and purchasing and procurement, where the product comes from, and a lot of our guests, and especially younger guests, want to know that story behind it.
Before I turn to Mehmood, Christy, one question. You, among all of us, have worked at both sides of the food, retail food, grocery for home and also restaurants, including my favorite stop when I get stuck in the Atlanta T terminal with a long layover, which will probably happen on me today, I just found out. One of the things we do with Menus of Change also is to start to rate the progress of the restaurant and food service industry, looking at dietary intake and also changes in mainstream business practices. And I wonder if you have any comment on where change and innovation is happening from where you see it.
Yeah, well, certainly, if I think about Jamba and our involvement in menus of change over the past few years and how we've evolved our menu, it has been, well, right now, this past year, we've rolled out an initiative around whole food blending and juicing, and so it's not just about the yummy strawberries and pineapple, but it's blending in kale and spinach and pumpkin seeds and chia seeds and ginger, and really, kind of making the menu more inventive and exciting, but also improving the nutrition profile and making it more of a, kind of like a healthy fast food meal solution. So we are definitely seeing, our fruit and veggie blends really taking off, and so there's been strong demand. We, our customer base tends to skew younger. They're very much into health and wellness and sustainability, and so we found that it's just, not only is it right on trend, it's also, beneficial from a health perspective, and we like to continue to be a leader in that. And it's also been a great way, quite frankly, for us to have a really productive, engaged workforce, because they feel really great about the types of products that we sell. If you think about a job flipping burgers, no offense for anyone here, but a job flipping burgers versus making this health and wellness oriented product that happens to be delicious, and there's just this healthy halo around it that's really a point of pride for our employees, and our average employee age is 19. So, it's really beneficial from just an attraction and retention and engagement tool as well.
Now, Mehmood, you've not yet been invited to join the Menus of Change Council. This could happen as a result of Gloria bringing us together. But I understand you made the hard decision to be with us here in Orlando rather than in DC, where there's 5 inches of snow and my daughter's school was closed.
Decision.
But your company's made a commitment in another platform to health in the last few days, and I wonder if you could mention.
Well, I don't need to tell anybody about PepsiCo, except for perhaps most people think of PepsiCo as a beverage company, often not realizing, of course, that we own Frito-Lay, we own Quaker Foods, Tropicana, Sabra, the hummus company, Naked Juice, and if you actually look at our portfolio, our nutrition businesses like Quaker Foods and hummus, et cetera, make up about $13 to $14 billion in business. So we're one of the biggest nutrition brand portfolios in the world. And this has been a conscious decision, and you're coming back to the question, we looked at this when Indra Nooyi took over as CEO and chairman as performance with purpose. We knew that we needed to perform as a business, but we had to give this purpose. Now, this is not corporate social responsibility. We wanted to grow a business that was a sustainable business, but do it with purpose. And I joined the company relatively soon after Indra Nooyi took over as CEO. And I could talk about all the different things we've done in innovation and product development and process and all the rest of it. But to me, one of the great opportunities when you are the largest food and beverage company in the country, around the world, we're the second largest, is the impact on a broad level. And a lot of discussion yesterday and today about changing communities, changing environments. Let me give you a couple of proof points as to how profound the impact can be at a population level. Well, first of all, 1.3 billion humans on the planet consume one of my products every day. This is not a virtual contact. This is not, in cyberspace. So we actually know how to make, move, and distribute our product. But what's the opportunity of that huge reach? 2010, we got together, and since we're the largest company, 16 companies here in the US that produce packaged foods and beverage, cans, bottles, packages, got together, and that accounts for 36% of all calories sold in the United States in packaged food. Okay? And we made a commitment we would reduce the calories in our entire industry portfolio by 1.5 trillion calories, 1.5 trillion. And we'd remeasure in 2014, but we wouldn't measure it because we weren't credible. We asked the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which nobody would argue in terms of credibility, to actually come and audit what we'd done. By 2014, it's just ended, we had reduced the calories we sell across the entire country by 6.5 trillion calories. That is 78 calories per person per day for every man, woman, and child in the United States. That's only 1/3 of the calories sold, because we represent 1/3. If you now imagine as the leaders what we've shown is possible, and I'll talk a little bit about how, imagine if the other 2/3 did that, that's almost 300 calories per person per day out of the diet. If you want to impact health, you've just done it, and we've just shown how to do it. And we've done it in a sustainable way, in a somewhat quiet way. We haven't told the consumer exactly how we've reduced the calories, because one thing we know is you can take two identical products and put diet on one and the other one you don't, and all of a sudden the consumer thinks you've messed with their product and they don't want it. They'll walk away. So you've got to do it in a very clear way without, quote, compromising the experience. But I just throw it out to you. Just think about if 1/3 of the calories sold just lowered by 78 calories, what would happen to the other 2/3, and what would that do? So while we talk about small trials of 1,000 patients, 50 patients, I've just demonstrated for you a 300 million consumer trial. That's the power and the impact. Now, coming back within that, I'll just mention a couple of other things. I looked at sugar consumption, and we've had a lot of discussion around sugared beverages. Well, the reality is soda consumption in this country has been declining for over a decade. However, you can lower sugar by reformulation and shifting the consumer to low sugar or no sugar products. So we set about doing that in 2007. Let me give you a statistic. Since 2006, which was the last year we measured for this baseline, through to 2012, out of PepsiCo's own portfolio in the US alone, we have taken out 400,000 tons of sugar.
So your company is using 400,000 less to supply the U.S.
Okay, that's happened by a lot of reformulation, a lot of recategorization. So it's going to happen. It's happening now. It's good for business. The great news is, while we've been doing this, our brands have been growing, our businesses have been growing. We are the leading company in new innovation in the supermarket in terms of revenue, volume, brand, you name it. So coming back to your triple bottom line, I don't have time to talk about the environment, be happy to get into that because of all of the opportunities there. We're looking at all three. And I think we're showing by leadership how it can be done.
Thank you. Christy, I want to come back to you a second. You start to talk a little bit about the workforce and 19-year-old as an average frontline worker age. I'm guessing that probably a lot of those weren't even Jamba Juice customers when your restaurant group kind of started the fresh smoothie space. And what was it in your company that made you say it's time to re-innovate around health?
Yeah.
Almost let the market catch up to where you had seen it going.
Right. Yeah. So 25 years ago, when we started, it was all about smoothies. But I think a combination of factors. There has been greater demand for healthier, more sustainable food, especially we're a California-based company, and that is just kind of our core consumer very much skews that way. But we were also looking for a way to play a leadership role in the food service industry. And, quite frankly, you can kind of go one of two directions, right? You can go more indulgent, or you can go healthier. And we saw an opportunity to do that. And just, I think, kind of through the heritage of our company, we started out with fresh juicing. And so we saw a way to take advantage of that and, create a broader portfolio of products that appeal to a broader consumer segment beyond smoothies and something new. Smoothies have been around for a long time, and there are a lot of companies, McDonald's, Burger King, others who have those types of offerings. They're not as healthy as ours, but this was a way to play a leadership role, quite frankly.
I want to ask you and Mehmood also to talk about operationalizing a big shift in your company, because our charge was not just to be the food panel, but also to share what we could about innovation and collaboration. So Mehmood, I appreciate what you've told me about reformulating products in a way that is not fully transparent to the consumer, but better for them. So I wonder if you could talk about two things. What was the process or the politics of making a decision in Pepsi to change products to be better, knowing how much of your business was tied into some of the legacy brands and products. How does that shift occur in a company that keeps innovating new brands and products or making acquisitions and saying, it's this, not that we want to head in? How do you embed health in such an old and established company?
You know, it's a combination. I mean, there's no magic or new thought in this. It's a combination of clarity at the top of the organization of what is the future, what you want to achieve. You have to absolute clarity on what that vision is. And our executive team, led by Indra, I joined subsequently, as I mentioned, we've been very clear. It's about performance with purpose, and we set 3 planks: human sustainability, environmental sustainability, and talent. Let me talk about the third part of this, which is probably often the least talked about. It was bringing in people with diverse backgrounds. And I'm not talking about gender and ethnicity. I'm also talking about background of their experiences, background of their technology, background of their sciences. We brought that to enrich the existing part of the company. So an example, people that you may not expect at PepsiCo's R&D, we have molecular biologists, we have physiologists, we have agronomists, we have obviously the usual engineers. We have probably 15 to 16 chefs that have joined since I come to the company. We're bringing the culinary arts to the science, bridging these things. And when you start to bring this diverse and rich thinking, that starts to permeate the organization. And then the other is employees want to have a positive impact. It's about engagement. And you need to give them the tools, but also that clarity of vision, what you're trying to achieve, and it's a movement, and then they get behind it. We get amazing satisfaction scores from our employees, and it's all related to what we're trying to do. So I think you cannot separate these things from talent to what you're trying to do with your products, and of course environment, all the impact on the environment. As you showed, 40% of water use is directly, and 80% of the global water use is related to food production and process. 80% of this planet's water. So that they want to get involved.
Christy, changing what you do in hundreds or thousands of restaurants all at once, with a workforce of an average age of 19 in the field. How do you change attitudes, behaviors, training, equipment? What kind of move was it like for your company to say, we're going to re-innovate, reinvent, and deploy all within a very short window?
Sure. So I probably have the goofiest title of anyone here. So I not only run the people operations, but also sustainability. And I often get asked, how do those two things go together? To me, it makes a ton of sense. It's all about driving desired behavior through effective communication and motivation. And as Mehmood said, especially a younger workforce really wants to feel a deeper sense of meaning and purpose and impact beyond just going to work and scooping things into a blender jar. Or, in the case of our headquarters, folks in whatever department want to feel like they're part of something bigger. And I think that's just honestly kind of a basic human need. You want to feel like the work that you do matters. And especially in the Bay Area, there's a lot of competition. And so we've really found that one of the things that I focused on when I came in was thinking about how do we wrap all this together and tell a story with it. And I kind of look to the core culture of the company. We very much believe in, I observed almost this ecosystem of health and wellness where we work with professional athletes. Venus Williams owns a number of Jamba Juices, Vernon Davis, who's a professional football player. So we have those folks who really appeal and are huge believers in our products. But then we have our suppliers and our employees, and we really do partner in the community. Our CEO himself went through a junior achievement program. He kind of rose from humble beginnings. And so we really have a big focus on how do we bring along the community with us as well. So. But very much aligned with our mission. So we, for example, install garden grants in schools and teach kids about fruits and vegetables. With our employees, we created what we call the MBA program, Master of Blending Arts. And so but it provides basic nutritional information and teaches the folks who work in the stores how to advise guests if they have certain health goals or want to cut down on certain things, how to advise them and how to make good menu choices. But that makes them feel really proud. They get a little pin, which actually is a big motivator to earn that pin. We tied all of this together into what we call Team Up for a Healthy World, the whirl of the blender. We always like to make a play on words, anything to do with the blender, but Team Up for a Healthy World. And so the world refers to both the Jamba world internally, how do we show up as a company, and kind of that our character, honestly, our company character in that sense of pride, but then what is the bigger impact that through working at Jamba you have on the broader world? And so we found that is really powerful to get people behind it and kind of create almost a brand or a movement around what it means to work at Jamba. And by working together cooperatively, it's not just Jamba, it's about leveraging the power of partners, athletes, the dietitians who advise us on our Healthy Living Council. We know that working together we can have a bigger positive impact, and that really resonates.
Scott, you're the odd duck out on this panel.
I am.
Yes, it's a food panel. It's odd that you're the only chef. You're also the only one who works at a health and wellness company.
Right.
And so talk to us a little bit about how food fits into the value proposition for a health and wellness company and what it's like to change the agenda so that food is one of the main drivers of health and wellness. What you've done with Canyon Ranch's food program.
Yeah, well, I mean, food clearly is a huge piece of all of our lives, and it is at Canyon Ranch as well. What you put into your body is very important, and that's kind of the overarching piece of the whole conversation here. But yeah, I want to talk we talk a little bit about that, but then there's an economic side too, and we talk openly at Menus of Change about the economics, and there can be benefits to adding more vegetables to food. I mean, not only are there nutritional benefits, but there's an economic benefit. I mean, we've held our food costs over my 16 years there to under 1.5% increase per year, which is pretty good. I mean, that's less than the average inflationary impact. And during that time have improved our sustainability, have added more fruits and vegetables. We've always had a lot of whole grains and fruits and vegetables. We've kind of de-emphasized animal proteins. But as we move more and more into the vegetable side of things, we're able to purchase higher quality protein, animal proteins that we do use, and still maintain costs. And I think that's a huge piece for us as an industry to really pick up on, that there can be an economic benefit. I'm sure there's an economic benefit to taking ingredients out of of even processed foods too. So anyway, so that's kind of one piece. And the other piece is just in general, it's incredibly important to fuel your body in the right way. And all of the research says, Arlin showed it, other doctors have showed it, Mark Hyman talked about it yesterday, and there's a huge nutritional benefit to eating better and eating in a more Mediterranean style. And we've always talked about being in the style or in the nutritional philosophy of the Mediterranean, and only in the last few years have we really embraced the flavors and the preparations of the Mediterranean, and that really encompasses vegetables.
If we have time for a couple of audience comments. I was going to ask this panel to tell you something, but I actually want to see what we can learn since we all came out here from everyone in the audience, which is as you've gone through the conference, and I have, and I think Scott and Christy and Mehmood, we've heard food mentioned many times. And I wonder if there's any thinking in the audience about where the ripe opportunities for co-innovation is between healthcare and medical and food and hospitality. Have any of you been thinking about this? Are there any ideas that are on your minds? Okay, we're going to get one idea minimum.
Yeah, this is two-part. This is Esther Dyson from the Way to Wellville. And the two parts are, one, especially from Pepsi and Jamba Juice, reactions to the government's recent announcement about sugar. And second, I would love to cooperate with both or either of you, in our 5 communities, presumably you're thinking about test menus, reformulating products, blah, 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 with less sugar. And we would like to figure out how to make healthier food profitable. So, question, how you're reacting, what you think that might change in terms of how you go forward.
Let me take well, the recent paper, as you know, are not recommendations. They are a panel's, I guess, proposal, and then the government's going through a review process and getting input. So let's see how all of this shapes up. But there are some important principles in that. One is, of course, the emphasis on the saturated fats, reduction in animal protein, increase in vegetable protein, etc. It's also interesting, as you pointed out, that there's a link between all of that and benefit to the environment. So what's good for humanity is good for the planet, which in turn is good for the environment. So let's see how all this shapes up. As I already mentioned, we've been on a clear journey of a very broad portfolio of products in lowering our sugar. 50% of all the products that PepsiCo produces in the beverages are now low sugar to zero sugar already. That's half of our business. And it used to be about a quarter. It's now half, and it's continuing to evolve. But relevant to that, I just want to throw out a couple of statements and questions and challenges as much for all of us, because the question is around innovation and opportunity between different disciplines. As many of you know, I'm an endocrinologist by training. I'd never worked in the food and beverage industry in my life prior to my first job as the global head of R&D and now the vice chairman. Interesting. And yet, it's exactly that type of move of where we bring people from different disciplines together, either in leadership positions or working together. Here's the challenge that troubles me. We want to increase fruit and vegetable consumption. 40% of all fruits and vegetables harvested in the developing world, other than Western Europe and North America, rot after they've been harvested before they ever get consumed. 40%. And therefore, the planet's output with all that carbon and all that water use, etc., we compost or trash. 40% of the food that we buy in our households in the United States ends up in the garbage. And so if you actually want to feed 1 billion hungry people on the planet with nourishment and nutritious food, you don't actually have to grow 30% more food. You have to figure out a way of actually taking the food you've already grown and harvested and retain it in the food supply. Now, that's not going to be a problem that a chef is going to solve or an endocrinologist alone is going to solve. It's going to be a problem that if we bring everything from system engineers to material scientists to biologists to agronomists to government regulators to academic institutes, NGOs, and put our heads together instead of dividing, actually come together, look at the opportunity. All the things that you want to cook, all the things you want to blend, we actually grow them already. The only thing is half of them we just trash. And look at the impact on the planet, because if we continue to do what we've always done, which is grow more and throw half of it away, then this planet can't sustain 9 billion people on the planet. There's 7 billion today. It's going to be 9 billion by 2050, within the lifetime of many in this room. 2 billion people mean 40% more food. 40% more food, you can either keep what you've already grown or try and grow 1.5 times as much food. So if we, coming back to those guidelines, actually did what that guideline says for fruits and vegetables, just in the United States alone, there's a little calculation you can do on the back of a napkin. You would actually have to increase fruit and vegetable consumption by 1 serving per person per day in the US. To do that would equal the total production of fruits and vegetables of the entire state of California. Okay? Now, there is not another state of California in the country. There is land, but it doesn't have the sun. Does it have water? When you combine all of that, we'll end up doing one of 2 things. We'll end up either importing more fruits and vegetables, and do we know those countries who grow those fruits and vegetables for us, can they afford to give them to us? Or we'll figure out a way of retaining what we've already grown. So my challenge into your question is, that is going to take collaboration. And I'll leave you with this other statement. The United States has been the world's most productive innovation nation on the planet, right? As we think of all the opportunities to innovate, we have an opportunity to innovate not only for our country, but for every country in the developing and emerging world, Africa and Asia included. That is leadership, where we can show leadership if we choose to. Let me just leave you with that.
Thank you, Mehmood. Unfortunately, we've been told they need to do a second seating. So we're going to have to end our panel here. And I want to thank Scott, Christy, and Mehmood for their time.
Thank you.